All right, welcome everyone to my channel. And we appreciate you stopping in today. I have a very special guest. This happens to be my best friend. This is Rae-Michelle Leroy, and she's here to talk to us about her journey. And let me start by reading her bio for everyone. This is Rae-Michelle Leroy, and she's the director of St. John Vianney Catholic Church in Sedona, Arizona, and is pursuing a Master of Arts in Theology and Christian Ministry at Franciscan University of Steubenville. After receiving a Bachelor of Arts in Theater and a Master of Business Administration, she went on to a career in the entertainment industry in project management and contract administration at Universal Studios Hollywood, NBC Universal, and 20th Century Fox. After becoming Catholic, she began working in Catholic media on the software and services team at DeSales Media Group based in Brooklyn, New York. She is thrilled to be using digital media to spread the gospel from her hometown parish and looking forward to the adventures with Christ that are yet to come. Is that a typo? Did you mean to say the adventures with Christy that are
yes, yeah. Which is happening right now.
I do have to confess to everyone, Rae-Michelle and I used to dance together. That's how we know each other. And
yeah.
You'll hear a bit
wait, is it 20 years ago now that we met? I think so.
20 plus, or no, well, maybe a little bit plus. Yeah,
a little bit plus. Yeah. Crazy.
I think that your life journey is very interesting to me because of all the twists and turns and the changes that have come about in your life, and as your best friend witnessing this. And we met and we were dancing, and we had a certain life out here where I am, and life has taken us both in different directions. And I just think your story is very interesting. So thank you for coming onto my channel.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So why don't we start at the beginning? A very good place to start.
That's what I hear.
Yeah. I guess from where you are now, were there any indications in your upbringing and your childhood that this would be the vocation, the calling that you would receive at some point in your life? We could start there.
Yeah, I mean, the quick answer to that would be no. But the longer answer is I was baptized Catholic, I have to say, when I was 1 month old. But my parents left the church before I can remember. So probably by the time I was 2 years old. So I really grew up with no religion whatsoever, which is kind of crazy to think about now. But yeah, we didn't practice anything. So I always say I'm a nun, N-O-N-E. I was a nun because really my whole life was about dance. My mom opened a dance studio when I was 5 years old, and that was it. All I cared about was dancing and performing, and one day doing that as my career. So really, religion and Christianity was just not even a thought, not even in my life whatsoever. So yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your transition out of dance a bit, maybe putting your tap shoes to the side and on different kinds of shoes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, well, I moved to Los Angeles. I'm from Ohio originally. And I moved to Los Angeles to pursue being a performer. And as far as spirituality goes, when I went to college, a religion course was required, and I ended up taking Buddhism just because it fit into my schedule. That was the only reason. And I really loved Buddhism and Eastern philosophy. And when I first moved to LA, I explored that a little bit to finish off one of my classes to do an independent study. But that quickly dropped off. And I was just going to dance classes and ready to do that. And I did pursue it for a while, as you well know. I was in a dance company for a while, and But during that time, I started working in the business side of the entertainment industry at Universal Studios and decided to focus my career, fully on the business side of the entertainment industry. So I went back to school to get my master's in business. And that's when I finally hung up my tap shoes, if you will. And spirituality wise, then around that same time, I started going back to exploring Buddhism and Eastern philosophy. So I was really then pursuing my business career and at the same time becoming a yogi, if you will. And even explored starting a business called MBA Yogi. So if anyone wants to do that, you're more than welcome. But yeah, I was really then on the trajectory of the business world. My whole focus was getting that next promotion, getting the bigger salary, getting the better benefits, and working my way up to that corner office. So that was where I was right after I stopped pursuing being a performer and dancing and all of that.
Were there moments of fulfillment within that world that were tangible for you?
Oh, absolutely. I don't really have bad things to say about that. I really enjoyed my time. I actually started off in the theme park world at Universal Studios, working for the creative department. And that's where we designed and built all the rides and shows for the park. So I worked on the Shrek 4D ride, Transformers, The Simpsons. It was all project to project, and that was just great. Like, my project team was so much fun, and I really developed so many skills doing that kind of work. And then I switched into TV distribution, where I would distribute movies and TV shows specifically to Asia Pacific territories: Japan, Korea, China, Thailand, Mongolia, all kinds of territories over there. So basically, I would distribute, manage the contracts to distribute all of the TV shows and movies that Universal did. And then eventually I switched over to Fox, doing the same job to all the cable companies over there. And I worked with some amazing people. I was treated so well. And, from a worldly perspective, like, everything was totally on course and in some respects, very comfortable life and very exciting too. So definitely have nothing really bad to say about that. It was really wonderful and has given me a lot of skills that I still use now, and really great friends that I still keep in touch with. So
Yeah. So then let's talk more about your Catholic faith and what brought you back after being baptized as an infant, but not regularly attending or not really having it be a big part of your life, but it came back to you. He came back.
It's the Catholic faith teaches that when you get baptized, you have an indelible mark that never goes away. And because of my experience, I definitely believe that to be true. And it was quite a journey coming to this place. Sometimes I still can't even understand it, and I'll never get over it. But I was, totally immersed in the yoga world and Eastern philosophy and all of that. I even got my yoga teacher training. But, I noticed that something was missing. And in a sense too, I felt like I was losing who I was. And I think, I tried to think about it afterwards, and that philosophy really teaches non-attachment, which is good, but also just completely doing away with yourself into kind of nothingness, which sometimes sounds good in the beginning. It's like, oh, I'm nothing, and then after a while you're like, oh, I'm nothing. And after, really getting into it, I kind of felt as if I was getting into this abyss of nothingness, where I was just kind of losing. I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't know why I was pursuing what I was pursuing. And it was really funny because on the outside, like, everything was great, I was in great shape. My career was going exactly the way I planned. But I was just like, something's missing. I don't know who I am anymore. Something's wrong. And I need to just get closer to nature. I need to figure this out. So I decided to leave LA, which a lot of people thought I was nuts for doing that. But I just knew I had to get out of there. And I moved here to Sedona, Arizona, which is beautiful, definitely closer to nature. um, and I was like, okay, now I'm really going to dive into my Buddhism and yoga. I'm going to figure it all out. And I was doing that, and I kind of had a mystical experience. Like a week before, I was about to go to a Buddhist retreat with Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche, if anyone knows who he is. I had a dream of Jesus, and it was really wild because I had no idea why I would dream of Jesus. Like someone might say, oh, well, like now if I had a dream of Jesus,
Right. Like,
I
well,
wouldn't,
yeah.
I wouldn't think much of it because my whole life has to do with him. But at the time, I'm telling you, nothing. Like I didn't pray, I didn't go to church, nothing. So when I woke up, I was like, well, that's weird. Clearly he got lost, and I just kind of went about my life. And I did go to that retreat, and it was great, and just kind of kept plugging along. But over the next 6 months, I always say he was courting me, because I read a book about a Buddhist nun who like lived in a cave for 14 years. I think it's called like cave, something about a cave and a nun. It's really good. But she started talking about the nuns in Assisi, and then which made me look up Assisi, Italy, which of course that's where St. Francis is from. Who doesn't love St. Francis? So I started falling in love with St. Francis, which I don't know how you could not, and Assisi. Then I was listening to a talk that a Buddhist monk was giving, and he started talking about the Serenity Prayer, which is he said, this is a really great prayer. You should look it up. So I did. It turns out it's a Catholic prayer. It is a beautiful prayer. And I was like, well, I like that. And then I listened to a talk by Ram Dass. Maybe some folks might know who he was. Famous New Agey guy. But he was giving a talk about lust, and he started talking about sin. And I had never heard anyone talk about sin before, just talking about how, sin is missing the mark. You're trying to get to God and you're missing. And it was that was really interesting. Like I had never heard anybody talk about that before. And of course, sin is very much, it's a Christian Catholic thing. So it was just kind of like all these things. I wasn't actively listening to Christian things or Catholic things, but even still, it was like the Lord uses everything is his creation. He can use whatever he wants to get to you, and he's always trying to get to you. And he was kind of peeking his way through all these things, and I was just kind of like, this is all very interesting. Maybe I should check out the Catholic Church. I was baptized Catholic after all, which is all I really knew about it. So I called my grandma, and because she was the only person I knew who was even remotely Catholic. And she was, of course, very encouraging. So I called the church, and I was so clueless. Like I asked if I could do I need to buy a ticket to come? Like, because I was from theater, right? So I was like, I didn't know. Like I was like, do you buy a ticket? Does someone show you where to sit? I have no idea how this thing works. That's how clueless I was, just to give you an idea. So yeah, I went to Mass for the first time ever in January 2017, sat in the back, had no clue what was happening. I was just kind of following what everyone else was doing, but I was very fascinated. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, but I know something's going on, and I know it's interesting, and I want to find out. So that's kind of what the journey for me to get into the building. And then from there, learning what this is all about and actually coming into the church. I just talked a long time, but
Right. If you can remind me, because my timeline's a little jumbled. So when did you came to the faith, you came back to the faith, and you were confirmed, correct? In the faith?
Yeah, so I went to my first mass in January 2017. And I had asked the priest after, what do I do? How do I know what's going on here? Like, I'm curious. And he just said, like, keep coming to mass. And I was like, that's not going to help because I have no idea what you're doing. So I called another church nearby, and they actually had a program. At the time, it was called RCIA, Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. Now it's called OCIA, Order of Christian Initiation for Adults. I don't know why they changed it. But basically, it's for adults who want to come into the church and learn about the faith. And so I called the woman who was running it, and we became fast friends. She's became a friend, a mentor, she's a wonderful person. And I started going there to mass, and then afterwards going to class. And my mind was just completely blown. I would go to mass, and I was hearing the gospel for the first time in my life. And I'm sitting there hearing, like, do not worry, do not be anxious about anything. I'm hearing about the raising of Lazarus for the first time. I mean, all these things, and I'm looking around like, are you guys listening to this? This is good. Like, this was like what I've been looking for my whole life. And here it was, right here. It was like I found a treasure. And then she really helped me, understand everything. So it's kind of the combination between going to mass and having the classes. And I just became like a sponge. I was like, this is it. This is the place where I need to be. And that's all I was doing, was listening to Catholic things, reading about Catholic things, going to mass. And then I actually had my confirmation in December 2017. And my teacher, she was like, oh, you're so excited to learn, like, you should get your master's degree. And I was like, okay. So in January 2018, that's when I started pursuing a master's in theology, just simply out of love. I just wanted to learn more. I feel like I found a treasure, and I feel like I came to it late. I was 38 at the time. And it was like, all this has been here this whole time, and I never knew, and I have so much catching up to do. So yeah, that was the timeline. I had the dream in June 2016, and then started going in January 2017, and then my confirmation was in December of that year. So
Right. And so just for our audience here, so you were a musical theater major, is that right? Your bachelor's?
yeah, theater and
Okay.
dance, yeah.
And then, theater, dance. And then you got a master's in business.
Business. Yeah.
You are in the process of getting a master's in theology, correct?
Theology, almost done. This is my last semester. So yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of a strange combo.
Yeah. So you started this process of just enjoying this journey of discovery, and just, feeling this flame in your heart. And you, correct me if I'm wrong, you were still working in the corporate business world at the time, right?
Yeah. So when I moved to Arizona, I was so blessed that Fox allowed me to work remotely, which doesn't sound like a big deal now.
You're a trendsetter.
Yeah. Yeah, now everybody does it. But back in 2015, it was kind of a big deal. Like, I don't think they really wanted to do it, but it was easier than hiring somebody new. So they let me do it. And then I would just have to go back for business trips every once in a while. So I had a pretty cushy situation because I was making my LA salary, in a place that was less expensive, working from home. And in the entertainment industry, doing something I knew very well. So yeah, that's what I was doing when I came into the church and started my master's in theology. And then in January 2020, I was laid off from Fox because Disney bought Fox, which maybe people know because it's kind of in the news. And they eliminated my entire department. But I took that as a sign from God that was like, okay, it's time for you to not work in the entertainment industry anymore and do something for the church, which I was kind of excited because I don't think I ever would have left it voluntarily. Yes. Simply because it was comfortable. I mean, I'm just gonna say that. I know it's not very holy thing to say, but it was a very comfortable life, a very comfortable situation. But I had a sense that I wasn't going to be able to continue doing that as a Christian, because you do start to realize, like, when you're doing things that don't really line up with your faith. Like I was availing movies that were not, really in line with my faith, and that seemed like, it's not really good. And I'm participating in some small way, and I also felt eventually I would probably do something for the church. But with that being said, that's not why I started my degree or anything. I mean, I kind of just, like you said, I was just kind of discovering, so I wasn't really thinking long term or, what's going to happen or had any sort of goal. I just was in love. I mean, it really feels like a love affair more than anything else. So it's just learning more, but yes, that was a very long answer to your question. I was working in the entertainment industry at the time.
And so you transitioned to work for, I said in your bio, for DeSales Media Group, which was based in Brooklyn, New York. So you started to work more within your faith, correct?
Yeah. So when I got laid off from Fox, I was like, okay, I'm going to do something that having to do with my faith, having to do with the Catholic Church. But I really like to work remotely. So I kind of just Googled like Catholic remote jobs, and this job came up as an assistant project manager for DeSales Media Group, which seemed perfect because it was like, okay, it's for the Catholic faith, it's for the Catholic Church, and it's also having to do with media, which is my background. And it just so happened, it was kind of funny, the timing, because I had my interview in February 2020. And then, of course, March was when the whole world kind of went bananas with COVID. And they were kind of in the epicenter of it in Brooklyn. But of course, I was remote. So I went there for my interview, and then I was able to work remotely. And of course, then they all started working remotely, and everybody was working remotely. But what I did for them was I helped churches develop websites and get the software, teach them the software for their live streaming. And it was going crazy because a lot of those churches didn't have any of those things. And then when COVID started, everybody wanted it like today. So it's always funny because during COVID, the big joke was how people weren't working and they were bored. Like I was working overtime, like
you were
every day, helping these churches getting this stuff going. So that's when I kind of, switched industries, if you will, into the Catholic world, stepping my foot into the Catholic world, stepping my foot into a little bit more of computer IT kind of work, website design, those sorts of things. So I got to gain even more skills, which is really neat.
Yeah. And so this brings me, I think, in the timeline to your YouTube channel. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So actually, and I'll put this in the description of the video once it's uploaded, but I'm going to share my screen, and maybe because I think this happened before you actually started working for the parish, correct?
Oh yeah, it happened while I was still working for Fox. So
okay.
when I started my master's in theology, the very first semester, I shared with the teacher my conversion experience, if you will. And he was like, you should make a video for YouTube sharing this. and he encouraged me to do it. So I went ahead and did it. I just made my testimonial, if you will, as people tend to do. And I just put it out there, whatever. My channel, I called it No Longer a Nun, None. Yep, that's me. And I made the video in 2018. It was June 2018, I believe, something like that. And nobody watched it except my parents, and you, I think. So there were like 3 views. I didn't care. I really didn't. It wasn't about that at all. It never has been. But oddly enough, like I want to say it was 2021, like early 2021, all of a sudden, I don't know what happened with the algorithms or what, but it totally exploded. Like 15,000 people watched it. 500 people commented. I mean, it was just nuts. It totally caught me. It had been sitting out there for what, 3 years or something like that. And then all of a sudden everybody started watching it. So I thought, well, okay, maybe I should make some more videos, because people actually did say, hey, what's going on with you now? So I started making some videos. I have to admit, I don't keep it up super great, but it's still there, and I'm still every once in a while put something up there, just mostly just sharing. It's just about really sharing prayers, songs, thoughts, all about the Catholic faith. And that's really all it is. And I guess it's been important to me not to really worry about making it some sort of career or something like that, because I just want to make sure humility is always there. So, and it's very dangerous ground when you start doing stuff like that. But I'm excited about my faith. I think you said I was the director of St. John Vianney, but it's actually the director of evangelism.
Pardon
Yeah,
me.
so just so I'm not the director of the whole place.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, this is a great way to evangelize, but even just share. And if that's evangelizing, then great. But it's kind of like anything, you find something amazing and you want to share it, whether it's a poem or a prayer or a song or a thought, scripture.
I'm going to share my screen again. And what I like is the scenery and your beautiful voice and your words. And it seems to me there's a spontaneous element to it too. It's not, and I like that too. I think this is maybe
that's my first one. Yeah, the 15,000 views. It's definitely not been that much since, but glory be to God that, like that, hopefully, help people in some way. And but yeah, I think that's kind of, I don't want it to become too structured or planned out necessarily. That's kind of on purpose. And maybe it won't make me a famous YouTuber or anything, but because I'm not the most consistent, but it's very important to be genuine. And I think it's a danger for anybody in any field, right? Or any part of their life, I guess I should say, to become prideful, to turn in on yourself, or to take something that you love and something genuine. And it's very tempting now, because we can all put this stuff out there.
I was just
to turn it into some sort of like brand or business. And I mean, we used to perform and everything. So I think it's important just to keep it real, and just be genuine and just down to earth, so
as here we are on my YouTube channel talking about but it is good to remember, because everyone has an opportunity to have a platform and on so many different social media channels, and just to think about why you're doing that and what you're putting yourself out for.
That's important. That was key what you said, like the why. Why are you doing this? Like, it's okay. It's totally great. If you have something to share, there's probably other people who feel the same way, or maybe you can show them something that you know is amazing. But just make sure when you're doing this, like, what's the why? Is it really coming from that place? Or is it like, oh, I'm supposed to post a video every week, or, oh, I'm on this hike, I better make sure, like take a picture of myself, I think it's important for it to be organic, and trying to keep it that way if you can, but yeah, it's like anything in life. There's just got to find that
Yeah. You're talking
balance.
about pictures. It just made me, realize, of course, our smartphones, our cameras, it's like back in the day, everyone wouldn't just have a camera with them at all
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
But we do
Yeah.
now. We
When we
do.
put that pressure on ourselves, like, oh,
Yeah,
this is beautiful. Oh, I got to take a picture. It's like, it's okay sometimes just to enjoy it, and,
right.
don't need to take a picture. And if I try, for that channel, um, if I genuinely have just something that comes up that's just there,
Yeah.
I never really try to say, okay, I got to write something
Yeah.
for this week that I need to share. And, I don't know, maybe I should, maybe it'd be better.
I
But for
personally,
me, I just don't, I want to make sure it's all, because it is truly real. It's a real thing. And I want to make sure um people feel that and know that I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to share something amazing that I've learned and I've experienced, so
um, I wanted to share a bit about how it helped me so much to go to the local Catholic church when I was going. And I am not a member, but I was so grateful to be able to go to a beautiful place and to participate in the mass in the way that is respectful of Catholicism, and, not to partake of the, communion and all that. But I was so grateful that I could go and still get what I needed out of it. And as you know, and I'm just going to share, because this is my why, is talking about what happened with my dad, what happened within my family. It was a really difficult time. I had one of my animals was very, very sick. And then that kind of blended into the time when my dad was very, very weak and ill. And there was some abuse that happened towards him, as you know. And
mhm.
it really helped me. I've shared before, to dance. And for me, that was ballet. It still is ballet. And it really was helpful for me to go to mass every Sunday. And I was so grateful that I could go, that it was a place for me, even if I wasn't baptized and I didn't necessarily feel the call to be baptized. And I really felt a lot of value in the rituals of
Mhm.
the mass. And is there anything you'd like to say about the rituals of the mass?
Yeah.
That means,
Well, I think it's important. I think a lot of people were like me. I just didn't know anything
yeah,
about it. So I think it's important for everyone to know that this is ancient, right? The Catholic faith is 2000 years old, and when we go to mass, we're doing things that people did 2000, and we know that, by the way. We actually have writings from Catholics back in 100, 200 AD, of what they did, and how they partook in mass. And you can read it today and recognize it. So you're participating in something that our ancestors have participated in. And I think that you're feeling that. Also, it's important to know that God's law is natural law. It's the same. Okay. God created us. So when you are following God's law and you're um, ordering yourself to God, it's actually you're being who you were meant to be, because God created you, and when you're uniting yourself to Him, and you're worshiping Him, you are doing what's actually natural. You're following the natural law. So you feel that when you are participating in the Catholic faith. Catholic means universal, it's for everybody. I think sometimes people don't realize that or think about it, but there's Catholics all over the world. You can go to a Catholic church in Brazil, Japan, France, wherever, Australia, and it's going to be the same. So I think all of these things came to mind when you were saying that, but I think it's important always to remember that God's law is natural law. So it's going to feel right, because when you get closer to God, you're becoming who you were meant to be, who you were created to be, because he created you. So it feels good. So I think that's what you were feeling. I think it's important too, and you brought up the ballet and church. It's important to remember that we are body and soul. And it's important to always remember we're both. And you'll notice in the Catholic faith, there's a lot of physicality to it.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
was gonna say.
a lot of kneeling, there's standing, there's smells. The sacraments are tangible things. There's oil, water, the Eucharist, bread. Because the Catholic faith respects the fact that, we have dignity as human beings and we have a body. God gave us a body, and that's good, but we also have souls, so a lot of the problems you see in our culture are trying to separate body and soul, if you really think about it. And the Catholic faith respects that we're both, and honors that we're both. And so you also get that sense too when you are participating in the Catholic faith and the rituals, that you're being fulfilled in both body and soul, which is missing from a lot of other Christian denominations and everything. It's gotten lost. So when you're practicing the Catholic faith, you're getting the fullness of the faith. You're getting everything. And it's something that's been passed down to us, this treasure that's been passed down through the ages. And it's just so beautiful, and it's been amazing studying. And I mean, my two favorite things studying the faith, there's so many aspects of the faith. It's so rich. The more you learn, the less you feel, because you realize there's even more to know. And you could learn it for the rest of your life and never know it all. But I just love history. I love the history. I love scripture, which is also part of history. I mean, it even goes further back, in the Old Testament, everything is rooted in there and comes through, and Jesus fulfills the Old Testament, and then, establishes his church. And now here we are, we're still a part of this story. I mean, it gives me chills to think about, like, how we're just a part of this big picture. We're part of something so much bigger than ourselves. And it's so good to remember that, because when we're kind of cramped in on just ourselves and our own worlds, we're missing out. You're actually a part of something so much bigger. And when you open yourself up to it, God will come rush in and take you to places you couldn't go on your own. I can't even tell you how I am doing the things I'm doing now. Like, there's just no way I couldn't have even imagined it. It's all him, so, it can be scary, any adventure is
Yeah.
awesome, but also scary, right? And it's totally an adventure.
I really specifically felt that the movement or the motion of kneeling for me was really very important for me at that time, when I needed a lot of help and I needed a lot of guidance and fighting for my dad. And I really it was very profound for me. And I know I can do that here too, but it was, as that being part of the ritual, that humility, I
Mhm.
need help. Um, Yoga, it's like child's pose. Like, there's these positions we could put our bodies in that put us in a position of receptivity and humility. And I really found a lot of value in the kneeling specifically.
Yeah, and it's good. Like, you're not alone. Like, God wants to help you, but sometimes we're just so stubborn, it's like, I got it. But when you do surrender to him, like, he'll come in and help you in ways you couldn't possibly understand. There's something really good, you may want to look up, your listeners might want to look up, called the Surrender Novena. it's become particularly popular these days. But it's really beautiful. And it's just, surrendering to Jesus, and just saying, he'll take care of it. He'll take care of it, Um, and it's a beautiful thing to do, because you're not, and I think that's what's missing in the Eastern philosophy. There's maybe you can find the non-attachment and the surrender, but there's no loving God there to then carry you. And then you're kind of just left there in the abyss, but he's there. Like, you're so loved. Like, you're so loved more than we can't even comprehend that kind of love. It's so beyond our capability. And you don't want to miss out on that love. So, but you have to have that humility to be able to accept it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So how did you transfer to away from to your position as
Yeah.
director
Yeah, well, it's so funny. So I
evangelism?
was working for the Diocese of Brooklyn remotely. It's going great. I did it for about a year, about a year and a half in. My home church, got a new pastor, and our old pastor had unfortunately passed away. And we were kind of like orphans, we have like a regular pastor, and we finally got a pastor, and he was only there for about a month, and he approached me just randomly. I had never talked to him. I kind of was always like, I'm not going to bother the priests, like, they're busy. But he came up to me, and he said he had heard about me. I don't know who or what he had heard or why, but and he kind of said, do you like your job? He was just kind of like, I really need help, because our parish had been, kind of felt a bit neglected for a while. We hadn't had a pastor, and nothing was really happening. And he came, and he really wanted to get things going again. And he said he really needed help. And I was kind of feeling like, gosh, it's kind of strange. I'm helping all these parishes in New York, and my own parish, needs help. And I had been working from home at that point for about 6 years. And I was thinking it might be good, especially with the state of the world and all the crazy stuff going on. Like, it might be good to start getting to know my community and like getting to know people, and not be hiding out in my little hermitage of my home. So I accepted, and I started working for St. John Vianney in June of 2021. And basically my role was to kind of help get a digital presence, like revamp the website, get the social media going, do the live streaming, things like that. And as I've learned working for a church, just more stuff just starts coming up, and you end up kind of doing a little bit of everything. But over time, like, I've helped with ministries at the church, and just updating the sound system. And we also have the Chapel of the Holy Cross here in Sedona, which is very famous site. And the church is also part of the chapel. So I also manage the social media website and live streaming for that. So yeah, I just do anything and everything. And over time, my role is kind of morphed into, director of evangelism, where I'm just evangelizing, whether it's digitally, or in the digital space, or with actual physical. I've made a lot of pamphlets and cards and things of that sort. Our pastor writes beautiful prayers, and we'll make cards with those, or just in person with the people that come visit the chapel, and also our amazing parishioners at St. John Vianney. So yeah, it's been pretty wild going from working from home, where it's super quiet, to being out and about, and with so many people. So it's been amazing. And like I said, it's only something God can do, because it just it wasn't something I went after or pursued, or And what's really funny, kind of funny tidbit, I guess, prior to probably like 6 to 8 months prior to our pastor approaching us, I joined a ministry called Seven Sisters, where 7 women, each one takes a day of the week and spends an hour in front of the Blessed Sacrament praying for a priest, like a particular priest. So I joined this ministry and they asked me to pray for our pastor, Father Ignatius Mazanowski is his name. So he was kind of, started helping us at that time. And so I had been praying for him like 1 hour every week, like specifically for him, having never spoken to him or anything. And then he comes up to me and starts talking to me. And now I work with him and for him. So it's just kind of wild how these things come together. I really think it's God's will, and God's kind of, moving the pieces around. And if we stay open to it, he'll show us where to go. And I've also had the opportunity to give talks down in Phoenix at the Institute of Catholic Theology, which has been amazing as well. I kind of connected up with them when I was started my master's program, going to lectures down there, and then they started asking me to give talks. So I've given talks on some saints down there, and that's been amazing too. So it's just kind of wild. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how I'm even doing all these things.
Yeah.
It's just kind of happening. I'm just saying yes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, though. It's not easy all the time,
Yeah.
as you know. It's a lot. It can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. So I think it's important though to share that, because sometimes we feel like when we start following God, like, oh, I have it all figured out. Everything's going to be easy now. And I'm just going to have everything I want all the time. And that's not quite the way it works in Christianity. Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me, right?
Jesus didn't have it easy all the time.
Jesus definitely did not have it easy. And we're following him. So yeah, it's important to remember that that it may not always be easy.
Yeah.
But there's this beautiful fruit that comes from it. And I think it's important to reiterate that as well, because we live in we all have pretty easy, all things considered, pretty easy lives, right? Compared to our ancestors. So sometimes when things are a little uncomfortable, it feels like it's bad.
Yeah.
Maybe that's true. Sometimes you have to have just healthy discernment, so I'm not saying, you should be in a bad situation by any stretch of the imagination, but I am saying it's just like, and we understand this in other ways too. Like if you are wanting to get into shape, it's not going to be a pleasant experience all the time, right? So it is kind of like boot camp, when you say yes to God, buckle up. He's going to take you places you never thought you could go. And that's amazing. And it's like boot camp a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen again. I want to show our viewers some pictures of both the Chapel of the Holy Cross and also St. John Vianney. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes. And this is probably one of the main reasons why I don't update my channel as much, because I am updating the chapel in St. John Vianney literally every day. So yeah, please follow us at Chapel Sedona and SJV Sedona on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And there's just beautiful content. You can see there's a beautiful wedding at the chapel on Friday. But yeah, it's just really, hopefully, there's obviously stuff about events and things like that, but there's also just, beautiful things that are happening at the chapel. Hopefully some inspirational things. But just the beauty of our faith, the beauty of Sedona, God's creation. There's a joke here in Sedona that God may have created the Grand Canyon, but he lives in Sedona. And I also, this is a reel, the one you have on now, that one of our visitors made. So many times if I see a really beautiful reel or pictures that our visitors make, I ask them if I can share it. And I've never had anyone say no. And it's really a wonderful community, even if we don't meet in person, just kind of connecting with people who've come to the chapel, who've come to Sedona, and they've had this experience, they've connected with God in some way, and we're kind of sharing that together and also with other people. So yeah, hopefully everyone really enjoys it. I enjoy it. I've connected with so many wonderful people by doing this. So
It's just so interesting too. I just want to share that I started, once you moved to Sedona, I visited you several times.
yeah.
We would go to, before you were Catholic, we would go to this chapel of the Holy Cross, and because the view is spectacular and it feels very majestic and holy and sacred.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful view, and all are welcome. All are welcome.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, everybody's welcome to come. And it definitely is a very popular spot. But yeah, we used to come before I was Catholic or anything. It was just a beautiful place to go. So I think everyone gets something out of it. No matter who you are or where you're from, or
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at that view and you're not feeling something, then
Yeah.
I don't know. You may need to get your heart checked.
Right.
Or
So,
your pulse.
right. And so this is the other site that you're at, pardon me.
Yeah. And this is a beautiful spot too, not nearly as popular. This is our parish. So this is we do have, just to be clear, we actually do have a mass at the Chapel of the Holy Cross but it's on Wednesdays and Fridays. So on Wednesdays and Fridays at the chapel, which you just showed before, we have adoration from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., confession from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., and mass at 3 p.m. But this one here, St. John Vianney, that's our parish, and that's where we have more of a normal parish schedule. So we have weekend masses, Saturday at 5, Sunday at 8 and 10, and 6 p.m. in Spanish, and then daily mass and all of that. So yeah, it's kind of the best of both worlds, but the property at St. John Vianney is also very beautiful. The grounds are gorgeous. It just so happens our pastor, Father Ignatius, was a former landscaper. So he's been little by little, like, fixing up the grounds to make them beautiful. And there's a lot more parking there at the chapel.
Yeah. The chapel's a little tricky if you're going to visit visit Sedona. It's
if you look it up, it's like one of the top 10 attractions in Sedona. It's one of the most beautiful churches in the world. It's actually listed in an article, Architectural Digest, I think. So it's a very famous spot. People from all over the world come, and it can be very crowded, which is great. But I always say, like, come to the church too, because there's the grounds are huge. There's plenty of parking, and it's also very beautiful. So
I got to see javelinas.
Yeah, there's a lot of wildlife here in Sedona, and that was wild because usually the javelina, they don't want to come out until dusk or maybe early morning, because
super hot.
They really don't want anything to do with us either. But we were there, it was at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and they were walking around the property. Yeah. That was kind of wild. Yeah. So yeah, you never know what you're gonna see. There's lots of wildlife around here, and they like to hang out as well. So at the church.
So I wanted to bring up too that since we have this performing background and you and I performed together, I remember you saying once that you're still kind of called to perform in some ways through your vocation, through working at the church right now, and that your involvement and my temporary involvement in the choir.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, actually. When I hung up my tap shoes, I kind of was done with performing at all. Wasn't really interested in it, and I didn't perform in any way for a really long time, and I especially hadn't sung in like 20 years. and it was fine. Like I didn't care. And when I started going to church, of course, you sing at church, right? And I had been encouraged to join the choir. And so I joined the choir, and now, like, every once in a while, what they call it, cantor, you sing the psalm. So it's just kind of funny how God works, right? Because I was like, that's okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. But he's kind of like, no, I gave you that, I gave you that talent. Now I'm gonna use it. You're gonna use it for me. And it feels like I'm using it for what it was meant for in the first place. And it's really beautiful to do that. Because I think, when you're a performer, I have to say though, I loved performing, and it never really did feel like it was necessarily about me. I just like to give in that way and to tell stories as you do as well. But I think in a way it did kind of become kind of too much about me, and I didn't want to be in front of people. I want to kind of focus more introverted, if you will. And that's why I kind of stopped it. But yeah, now I'm singing all the time. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird,
So when I went to visit Rae Michelle this past summer, their choir leader is very gregarious and enthusiastic and friendly. And you kind of forewarned me that he might ask me to sing in the
Yeah.
sing. I could sing. And not only did he ask me to sing, but he asked us both to do the handbells.
Bells. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is just another example. Like, God just, you show up and just, you never know what's going to happen. And I always tease, both our music director, his name's Tim Smith, and our pastor, Father Ignatius, because I feel like my resume just grows every week. Because
Yeah.
every time I show up, I'm asked to do something where I'm like, I've never done this before. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, it's okay. And that's kind of the way the Christian life is in general. And it just kind of manifests in this way. Like, it's just like, yeah, just come on,
Yeah.
start doing this thing. And that's totally, I kind of thought that might happen when you came, but I thought it was going to be like, oh, just stand up here and sing with us in the choir.
Yeah.
But next thing you know, we're playing the bells.
Had to put gloves on
With gloves on. It was like a little Michael Jackson, a little
yeah.
bit, the white gloves.
Yeah. And it's not easy. They're heavy handbells, and you really have to kind of
You
see.
have to really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah.
So,
And I was so nervous that I would like snap it and the bell would go like across the stage. But
it was so random. Like, we definitely did not expect that to happen, but
yeah.
it was actually really fun.
So yeah,
Um,
and I remember thinking, so here I am again. I'm not a Catholic, but I enjoy, on do you call it the stage? Pardon me. I don't know if you call it the stage, but that's what I call it. But up in front,
choir loft to the choir area.
choir loft. So I'm looking at the congregation and then, singing again. I'm not Catholic. I'm like, okay, hi, I'm visiting. And then having to do handbells. And I think he was so fun, Tim. And he was like, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
from Los Angeles, Kristen. I'm like, no, just visiting. It's very fun.
Yeah. And that's just, it's so funny. That's totally, it's kind of thrown me for a loop because I've always been, even though we always had been creative, it's been very much a planner, and just very structured. And I've noticed now being in this world, like, it's just not like that. It's just kind of, you never know. Like, you're gonna walk in one day, you're gonna be playing the bells, the next day you're gonna be like fixing a copy machine. I don't know. You're gonna be making videos, you're gonna be, I mean, there's never a dull moment, that's for sure. Like, I have not been bored. Like, I wouldn't mind maybe
Play,
a day or two of boredom every once in a while.
so you played the drums or a drum?
Yeah, I've played the drums now. Yeah, as far as the musical side, yeah, I've been pulled into playing the drums, the tambourine, the bells, the shaker, the organ. Somehow I played a little bit of the organ. I'm telling you, I have no talent in those places. And of course, the singing, at least I had done before. But it's kind of fun, and it's kind of neat to just say yes to things, and see what happens. And you
Yeah.
end up doing things that are just kind of funny. And yeah, but it's very fun. It's very exciting. And yeah, and it's just kind of interesting how God will make use of all your talent. He gave them to you, right? So it's not like, oh, I've become Catholic, so I can't do this or that or whatever. It's just he'll take what you have and use it and then make it even better, then next thing you know, you're playing the drums, like I don't
Yeah.
know. But that's been an unexpected surprise. And I just, because I'm not doing it for any sort of reason for myself, I could not saying it doesn't matter to me, like I'm truly just doing it out of love for God, and because I'm being asked to do it. There's really no pressure. I think sometimes when you're doing it, like you're trying to be a performer, you're trying to make it,
Yeah.
you have this pressure and all of that. And there really, as far as that goes, that's almost like a breather, kind of like relaxing to do that kind of stuff. Cause I have a background in it. I did it for so long, and now it's just doing it for fun, so yeah.
I have to tell everyone, Rae-Mi is one of the best dancers of the Running Man that I've ever seen. Seriously.
The Running Man has not come into play yet
Yeah.
at my job, but you never know. I'm still have it in my back pocket. Anybody who did hip hop in the 90s knows the Running Man.
Yeah.
So
We did a silly dance where everyone was just doing the Running Man, just in different formations, and be funny. We thought we were funny.
we were hilarious. We
Yeah.
did like a 90s, I think we did a 90s dance where we
Yeah.
did
It was
all
called the
90s.
90s, and we did some MC Hammer dancing too. And
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So no, that hasn't quite come up yet, but God gave me that talent too. So you never know. I'm not going to discount it. I don't know how it would come into play, but
so if several dancers are doing the Running Man, are they running men, or is it,
ooh, that's interesting.
or they
Yeah,
do running mans?
that's a good question. It's like, is it Bigfoot or big feet? Like
Yeah.
if there's one
Plural.
Bigfoot. Like,
Um, on on a different note, I wanted to point out or ask you, I saw that you at St. John Vianney, that there is the St. Michael Resource Center.
oh yeah.
But I actually was going to dovetail that with pardon me, that's Archangel Michael. Am I correct? Or am I?
Yeah.
And I was very touched, and I think you had mentioned this happens after every mass, but your pastor has the parish say the prayer of
Eagle
Saint.
prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. So yeah, this is a prayer that you may hear at the end of a lot of Catholic masses. It's a little longer than that, but yeah, interesting story with that prayer. Pope Leo the 13th, one of the best popes in the late 1800s, actually had a vision that God was going to allow Satan to, do things in the earth for like 100 years or something like that. Sorry, I don't know if I remember it exactly, but it's something like that. He had some sort of horrific vision that terrified him. So he wrote the prayer in the late 1800s. And I think a lot of Catholics kind of thought it was a little over dramatic for a while, but now it doesn't seem over dramatic at all. And Saint Michael is obviously a very powerful intercessor. And it's important to call on him when you feel like you need protection. He will protect you. So yeah, definitely look up that prayer. It's a really great prayer. And we say it at the end of Mass, after every Mass.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but we actually we actually have a St. Michael statue. It was at the chapel, and then it was moved to the parish because it kept getting dinged, and pieces of it were falling off. So to protect it, it was brought to the parish, and it's actually from like the 17th century. It's a really legit old statue. And we have it in front of this area that wasn't really being used at all in the parish. It just had a bunch of boxes stuck in there. And so we decided to clean it out and move all of our books that we had in there to make like a little library. And it was funny because I was like, what should we call it? And then of course, St. Michael's right there. So we decided to call it the St. Michael Resource Center. So that's how that came about. But yeah, he's definitely a good one to call upon. As Catholics, we believe in the communion of saints, which means that it's the church militant, which are all of us here on earth, the church suffering, which is everyone in purgatory, and then the church triumphant, everyone in heaven. And so we can always pray for each other and help each other out. We believe that the saints in heaven, they're our friends, and we can call upon them to help us in our journey here on earth until we get to heaven. So yeah, you can call upon Saint Michael, Saint Francis, one of my favorites, any of the saints, and our Blessed Mother, and of course, obviously, Christ himself to help you. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's really amazing.
And I also wanted to question you or give you a question and try to pose it in a way as if someone were listening to our conversation and heard about or listened to you talk about that dream you had, and someone were to say that that's a beautiful dream. I haven't had a dream like that. Will I be called? Is that how it happens? What would you tell somebody who maybe feels lost but hasn't had the same experience as you, or something that clear yet
Yeah.
at all, or yet?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's journey is different. I mean, that's a very unusual situation. A lot of people end up coming to the church because a friend brought them or somebody brought them there. So it's kind of an unusual, but not impossible situation. But what I would say to somebody who's searching, like I was searching, is just ask. Like, I know that sounds so simple, but get quiet, and just ask God, like talk to God like a friend, and just say, just in your own words. I think sometimes we put, myself included, I'm talking to myself too, because I still do it, put so much pressure, like, oh, I have to be in a certain way or certain place or feel a certain way, or I have to say certain words. And there are prayers out there which are great that you can use, but it's okay too to just talk to God, just ask, like, I'm really searching, I want to know what you want me to do, where you want me to go. Please show me yourself, show me, show me what you want me to do, or what you have in store for me. Just ask. I know it sounds so simple and it's like, yeah, okay, but you would be surprised how it never fails. And even still, I have to learn this, because I'll still get myself all tied up and not have it. Just ask. And if I just ask, every time, I'm not even kidding you, like every time I get an answer and it comes in a different way, like, yeah, maybe you will have a bit of a mystical experience. You'll hear God's voice in your heart, you'll become clear, but maybe it'll come through a person, or right after you say that, you end up reading something or hearing a song, and you're like, okay, that's not an accident. Like, I mean, it's obvious. It's always important to discern, what's real and what isn't real. Like I said, like, you always got to be careful. Like, if I had a dream now, it would be different than it was then, like, well, I always try to make sure I'm not getting over the top about it. But I'm telling you, it's so true. If you just ask, I'll tell you an example, just a silly example that happened a couple months ago. I had to write a paper about a spirituality of a particular saint, and I was trying to decide which saint to do. And once again, I had to remind myself, right? Oh, maybe I should ask God, what does he want me to do? That's what I'm supposed to do. Remember. So I did. I mean, and it was so fast. It's not like I did anything fancy. I just knelt down and said, God, show me what saint you want me to study. Because, when you study a saint and write a paper, you spend a lot of time with them, show me what you want me to do. And I went about my day, and I had a meeting later that day with our pastor, and he just randomly says, hey, I have this relic of Saint Elizabeth of the Trinity. Why don't you do a little more research on her so we know more about her? And it was like, okay, come on. Like, that's so weird. Like right away, and I can't tell you how many times something like that happens. So I think we've gotten a little, it's funny, like in our age, it's like either people are super cynical, or maybe they're, as G.K. Chesterton said, their heads or minds are so open, their brains fall out. Like, you don't want that either. You got to find that middle ground. But yeah, you would be surprised, like if you're just asking. And I don't know what I did not deserve what I got. But that's the way God works too. Like, he just gives you graces. And he wants to do that. So if you just open up your heart, and open up your mind, open up your soul to him, like, it will come. And you just got to pay attention and get quiet. And I think that's part of the problem too, is we're so distracted. We need to listen. If you're going to ask, then you have to give some time to listen too and pay attention.
Right. I think we tend to complicate things. It really is as simple as that. And just asking and you shall receive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm the worst offender of it. Like, it's like, I'm sitting here telling you, I know these things are true. They've happened to me. And I still be like, and I'll be just looking at my phone and this and that. And it's like, I forget. Just stop and just ask, or just tell God, if you're mad or upset, it's okay. Like, if you've ever read the book of Psalms, like, it covers the gamut of emotion, everything from, of course, happiness and joy and love to just complete despair, like, and sadness and anger. That's okay. He wants it all. He's our Father, like, so yeah, it is very simple. And it's always a good opportunity for me to talk about it, to remind myself too, because I'm the worst.
Right. So I'm going to include in the description of this video all of Rae-Michelle's links to her YouTube videos, and also the YouTube channel for both the Chapel of the Holy Cross and St. John Vianney in Sedona. And I have one more question for you, Rae-Michelle, before we say goodbye. If you could go back in time to a time when you were at a low, to a very difficult time, and what would you say, knowing what you know now, and the journey that you've been through your faith, your profound journey, what would you tell yourself at a time when you were in a different place and at a very low point? What would you tell yourself?
I would say, you're loved more than you can even understand. And just be still. Of course, from scripture, we know, be still and know that he is God. And, just be still and know that there is a God that loves you more than you can even comprehend. And no matter what is happening in your life, he is there. And he's there even suffering with you. He knows what it's like. he suffered. He came here and experienced every amount of suffering that you could possibly experience. So he understands, he's been there, and he will be there with you. He will help you through it. He'll give you the strength to bear it, and give you an opportunity out of whatever it is, to, to move into a new space, and maybe more into who you were meant to be. I mean, like I said earlier, just because something's painful doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. You might be being formed into something new, like being chiseled like a statue. And then maybe there's the sandpaper, like you're being formed, you're being shaped. So just remember that. I would say that to myself too. Like, just remember that when when you're going through this hard time, like, you're being formed into something, some new creation, and you are loved.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Rae-Michelle.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for sharing your heart and your journey and your beautiful faith. And thank you, everyone. We hope that you've enjoyed this talk we've had, this conversation, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.